everyone. So if you watched my top 5 Wednesday video for today on the top 5 books I've read so far this year, you know that I promised to give you guys reviews on 2 of the books that I mentioned there. So here this review is. The 2 books that I'm going to talk about are Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie and Who Fears Death by Nnedi Okorafor. So I'm going to start with Americanah, which was a book that I read around March, I believe, and it was just a really great book for me. The synopsis, a brief synopsis for it, is basically our main characters, Efemelu and Obenze, grew up in Nigeria, and they fall in love as teenagers, and they make this plan to immigrate to America together. But unfortunately, Obenze is not able to secure his immigration papers to go overseas, and so Efemelu has to go without him, and he ends up immigrating to England, but he ends up immigrating there illegally. So these two have very, very different experiences, and we start off the novel with Efemelu making the decision to go back home to Nigeria. The things that I loved the most about this novel is the fact that I was able to read a story about a person of color who is similar in age to me, going to college and what their college experiences were like. And I just was reading it, and there was just so many things that I read in there that I could identify with. And I really, really like that. Things like Efemelu's natural hair journey, or the feeling of being the token black person in a room, or having people who are white people try very, very hard to prove to you that they aren't racist, and in doing so kind of reveal just how racist they are. Those are all just things that I have experienced before, and it was really kind of nice. The thing that I like the most though about Americanah is the way that it looks at the way that a person is changed by these experiences, and how those changes can be a huge conflict when you return home. Efemelu and Obenze, due to their experiences in England and America, both come back to Nigeria changed, and they have different values and they view things differently, and there's a struggle that I see both of them go through, and when they try and wonder whether or not the changes that have occurred in them, whether or not they are good or bad, which is something that I definitely identify with myself. It's hard sometimes when you have been exposed to different things that the people you grew up with were never exposed to, and different values and different ideas and concepts, to know whether or not the new things you've learned are actually good and beneficial, or whether or not they're just, you know, the different values that group that you've been amongst has. To be more specific, pointing to examples in the novel, one thing that happens to Efemelu when she comes back from Nigeria is she finds that she's not a huge fan of Nigerian way of decorating things. She thinks that the way that Nigerians decorate things, the way that they dress up their homes, and the things that they find valuable, she finds them very gaudy. And in this case, this is an idea of her basically just internalizing the American way of doing things. She's just decided that she prefers that, and that's not something that she should be shoving down people's throat, because it's not necessarily that the American way of doing things is better. I mean, she may prefer it, but it's not necessarily something that she needs to be going around telling people, oh, you guys are doing this wrong. But when she returns home, she starts working at this women's magazine, and she gets really bothered by the content, because the content is basically just a bunch of articles about the rich women in their city and what they're up to. And she says to the editors, you know, I think we can be doing something better than this. We can be talking about other things. There are other issues out there that women will care about. And in this case, this is her kind of taking some values that she learned from being abroad and applying it there. And in this case, I think this is a good use of that. But I find that oftentimes those concepts and those things are mixed, and you're not always sure whether or not you're pushing the wrong kind of values or wrong kind of ideas on people. And I think that all the time when I go home. Sometimes I'm sort of like, there's just certain things I don't like anymore, or certain things that I'm not into anymore, or certain things that I do like now that the people around me don't care for. And I keep trying to ask myself, is it worth it to is this something that I need to change, to try and attempt to change in them, or is it something that I need to just let be because it's fine? And this figures really strongly into black respectability politics, and people kind of trying to govern black behavior and say this is right and this is wrong. And I like that Efemelu and Obenze both kind of work through to determine, you know, there's just certain things that are just, there are certain times where you can say this is just the way that this is and this is fine, and there are other times where it's like, this is the way this is, but we need to change it. And I kind of like the way that battle that kind of happens with those characters. My main complaint that I will have about Americanah is that I don't feel like we got enough of a Benze story, and I keep mispronouncing his name. I'm really sorry about that. I think it's important that we should have gotten more of his story because of the fact that it was so different. His experience was so different from Efemalu, because he was in England illegally, and a lot of the sort of aggression and stuff that he felt wasn't necessarily anti-racism as much as it was anti-immigration. Like, people were just completely against immigrants of any kind coming into England, and so it was really, really interesting seeing that come. But I mean, they were definitely particularly against immigrants of color, but there was just this idea that people were immigrating into the country and taking over, and it was just, the dynamics were different, and I wish that we had had a chance to see more of that, more of how those dynamics were different for those two people. And I also had some complaints about the blog in Americanah. So in Americanah, Efemalu keeps this blog that basically is viewing race in America from the viewpoint of a black non-American. And at times the blog post worked really well, because the blog post would be referencing something that we had just saw in a story, and it would work as a good device there. But there were a couple of blog posts that she posted that were written into the story that didn't have anything to do with anything that was happening in the story, and I kind of didn't like that. It kind of felt like she was kind of using it just as a platform to talk about her viewpoints, and I'm totally down with hearing about Adiche's viewpoints, because a lot of them I agree with, but I kind of felt like it was the wrong place to do it. But other than that, I loved Americanah, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. So the second book that I'm going to talk about is a book written by an author who has some similarities to Adiche. Nnedi Okorafor is a Nigerian American. She's the child of Nigerian immigrants, and Adiche is Nigerian. But what Okorafor writes about is completely different from Adiche. Okorafor writes fantasy and science fiction, and Who Fears Death is a post-apocalyptic tale about genocide and a lot of other really serious issues. At the beginning, we basically start off, it's something has happened that has kind of ruined the world, and the Nurus have come into power, and they are following this religious book, this book they call the Great Book, and in that book it seems to tell them that their job is to conquer the world, take over the world, and exterminate the Okiki people. And so that's what they go about doing. They invade villages and they slaughter entire villages of people, and they slaughter entire villages of people. And our story begins when one of the Nuru soldiers rapes a Okiki woman. Trigger warning for Who Fears Death: there is graphic details of rape and female circumcision. It's not gratuitous, but it does go into detail about it. So if those are things that would make you uncomfortable, you would want to avoid this novel. But the Nuru soldier rapes an Okiki woman, and a child is born, and her name is Onyensowu, and she is Uwu, because apparently when a child is born of violence in this world, they're marked, and they're marked with lighter skin and different hair color and so on and so forth. And so because of this mark, she is also ostracized by both communities, and she kind of grows up kind of the outcast. But she discovers later that she has these magical powers that she probably inherited from her father, and she has this destiny to try and help free her people from the Nuru reign. I gave a really bad synopsis of it, but that's kind of the main point of it. And so the thing that I liked the most about this book was the character of Onyensowu. She is a powerful female character. She works very hard for everything that she gets, and she is a person who will not take no for an answer. She has to face a lot of patriarchy in order to learn her gift. A lot of people say she's a woman, she's too weak to be a wizard, we can't teach you these things, you're not going to be able to handle it. And she has to fight really hard to show these people that she is worthy to learn the to learn the magic and learn how these things work. Another thing that I liked about her is that I feel like Okorafor avoids the trope of kind of stripping a woman of all the things that makes her a woman in order to make her a strong character. I kind of mentioned this before in my unpopular opinions tag when I talked about Lisbeth Salander from The Girl from the Dragon Tattoo series, but I feel like very often in literature and movies and such, in order for a female character to be seen as strong, she must be stripped of all of the characteristics that most people associate with femininity. In this case, I'm talking about emotions and being emotional. A lot of strong female characters often are the type of characters who don't show emotion, who are more masculine in their displays of affection. And I liked that Onyansolu was not that way. Onyansolu was easily angered and very emotional. She ran the gamut of emotions. She got angry, she got sad, she threw fits, she threw tantrums, and it was shown both as a weakness because of be flying off the handle like that all the time, but it was also shown as a strength because it was a great motivator for her. And in places where other people would stop, she would keep going because of those feelings. And so I really liked that. I like that she showed the ways in which this character was flawed, but she also gave her many strengths, and I really appreciated that. I really love the relationship between Onye, that's what her name shortens down to, and I believe it's Mawita. He is also Uru, and he was supposed to be a sorcerer, and was supposed to be and supposed to be as powerful or as Onye, but he doesn't pass the test that they have to do to get certain powers. And there's a certain level of rejection that he kind of feels, and he has to deal with his own kind of male ego because his girlfriend and his lover is in a lot of ways a lot more powerful than him, and that's really hard for him to deal with because he lives in a society that tells him that that's not supposed to be the truth. But he works really well through that ego thing, and the two of them have a very true partnership that I really think we need to see in literature more often. These two people both help and pull each other up, and they both need each other. Their relationship is very balanced, and I really appreciated that from this novel. The one thing that I will say that I didn't like about the book is that the writing is not spectacular, in my opinion. I'm not very crazy about Okorafor's prose style. I don't really think that that is a strength of hers, at least not in this novel. And there were some pacing issues or some jumping around, like times where we would jump around in time and space that kind of didn't always make sense to me. But I was so taken in by the characters and the story and the world that she created that I was able to ignore those things. So I would highly recommend both of these novels if you haven't read them. If you have read them, let me know down below what you thought, and I will be talking to you all soon. All right, bye.